Day 6 in Jordan began when Mahmoud I picked us up at the Petra Boutique Hotel for the ride to Wadi Rum. Two memorable events transpired on the way. The first was when a police officer at one of the many checkpoints motioned Mahmoud to pull over. We'd been stopped once before en route to the Dead Sea, and during that stop, Muhammed III had shown the required documents and responded to whatever they asked him while gesturing to us in the back seat. So we naturally assumed the cop who stopped Mahmoud was running the same routine. But I noticed that he didn't hand over any paperwork. So once we were underway again, I asked him what we'd been stopped for. Oh, his daughter needs a ride to the airport and he was wondering if I'm available. We got a pretty good laugh out of that. By the way, I keep forgetting to tell you guys, I have contact information for Mahmoud if anyone needs a car service in Jordan, in particular Petra to Aqaba. The other memorable event was when he suggested we stop at this place, which, as you can see, proudly proclaims itself to have the third best view in the world. The first two, apparently, being the Grand Canyon here in the US and Victoria Falls in Africa. We were greeted inside by a young man who offered us tea and led us up to the roof. While I was taking video, he and I had the following exchange.
So, if you want to take photos for yourself, together I help you.
Okay.
The third best photographer in Jordan.
He shot a bunch of photos of us with my phone, and contrary to what it looks like in most of them, I swear we're not standing in front of a poster. As with most of the places we visited in Jordan, since COVID restrictions had just been lifted, this place wasn't yet fully operational. The sign boasts a restaurant, but only the gift shop appeared to be open. I ventured downstairs to use the bathroom and decided to shoot the view from there as well. We picked up these Bopsy Twins hoodies, and I added to my collection of flag patches before piling back into the car. The drive from Petra to Wadi Rum takes about an hour and a half. While going through the footage, I noticed something that I had missed at the time. You see here, Mahmoud I has his Masbahah, or prayer beads, in his left hand. They're kind of an abacus to help memorize verses from the Quran or to keep track during recitation of the 99 names of God. Usually, as I understand it, it's a loop of beads divided into clusters of 33 with bundles of 10 beads to keep track of multiples and a tasseled rope to mark the start and end of the 99 bead chain. I really wish I'd noticed this at the time because I would have loved to have asked him about it. Had he, by driving us, missed noontime prayer, so he substituted the Masbahah as the next best thing? I don't know. It's pure speculation on my part. Finally, we arrived at the Wadi Rum Visitor Center, where Mahmoud I handed us off to our host for the next couple of days, Muhammed IV. Atop the cushioned benches in the back of his pickup, we rolled out of the car park, past these helipads, around a couple of bends, and straight out into the desert. I had advocated hard to add Wadi Rum to our itinerary. It offered jeep tours, rock climbing, and I had hoped time-lapse videos of the night sky, all while learning about Bedouin culture. Now, if you're new to this series, as I said earlier, this is day 6 of our trip. But back on day 4, at the Dead Sea, I fell down some stairs, rupturing a ligament in my left ankle and breaking the first 3 toes on my right foot. So I wasn't exactly ambulatory. Now, the Wadi Rum Protected Area has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2011. Located in the south, close to the Saudi border, it is the largest wadi, or river valley, in Jordan, covering an area of 280 square miles. Now, in retrospect, it kind of seems like Muhammad took a rather circuitous route to camp. We climbed several dunes that definitely required four-wheel drive, and the ride was a good 20 to 30 minutes. However, upon arrival, we saw these little rental cars, so there is at least one way in for regular streetcars. Our accommodations were at the aptly and simply named Wadi Rum Camp and Tours. It seems like a sort of a collective or cooperative. For example, once we had booked our stay, we were contacted directly by Muhammad himself. He was our host and guide. He didn't have any other guests during our stay. Kind of like a personal concierge with a 4x4. And Muhammad had WhatsApped me in the morning to ask whether we'd want lunch, since we would be arriving after everyone else had already eaten. So when we arrived, there was our own personal mitzvah laid out in the communal eating tent. We had already chosen and paid for the services we wanted months in advance. The first of which was a sunset camel ride. So after wolfing down some grub, we walked down the driveway to where our mounts were waiting. There's not really a lot that needs to be said about the next bit of footage, so I'm just going to shut up and leave you to it.
I've been looking forward to this.
During my research, I had read a lot about Zarb, the Bedouin version of barbecue, and we were both dying to try it. Quick note here, when I say barbecue, I'm referring to a method of cooking and not a cooking appliance. Barbecue is cooking at moderately low temperatures for a long period of time. At even lower temperatures and longer periods of time, you're smoking. Cooking fast at very high temperatures, which many people call barbecuing, is actually grilling. You don't barbecue hamburgers or shrimp. You grill them. Okay. But I digress. Zarb involves building a fire at the bottom of a pit dug in the sand and waiting for the wood to break down into coals. You then place a tiered grate into the pit, cover it, and allow it to cook for several hours. I was so intent on being there when the Zarb was unearthed that I made Muhammad promise that we would be back from our camel ride in time. And we were.
قد ما هو ساعة.
لا 3 ساعات هذه يقعد عندنا.
اسمع قد ما بتسخن البرميل قد ما ايش؟ بيستنى الوقت نفس الشيء.
3 ساعات.
أقول لك 3 ساعات.
كفاية. ما أروح كم تاكل؟ واو
Fantastic.
Yeah, guys, like sometimes in here very cold, like here sit inside around like 4 hours, 3 hours and a half.
Slow cooking.
Yeah.
It's better
Here's
than
guys,
MasterChef.
hashish,
That's right.
here marijuana. Here. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
It smells good.
Now, it may look as though Muhammad and Wendy are bailing on me here. That's because they totally are, but not in an evil way. He motioned for her to follow him quickly so she could be at the front of the line once inside the tent. And again, not in an evil way. It takes a few minutes for the guys to get the Zarb situated, by which time I was able to catch up. The dinner was tasty, although it was better the second night, and the company was also good. There isn't a lot to do at night in the desert. As I mentioned earlier, I had dreamt for months of recording time-lapse of the night sky, but 4 or 5 steps uphill in the sand outside camp was enough to convince me that it was inconceivable.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
So, along with our hosts and the other guests, we spent some time around the fire before turning in for the night. At which point, I snapped a couple of photos to chronicle the progress of my injuries. The next day started as many days do, with breakfast. We were able to check in quickly with some of the folks we'd met the night before, but then it was time to climb into Muhammad's truck for the main event. Worth mentioning, we were there in November, so even on a clear, sunny day like we had, the temperature was perfectly comfortable, mid-70s, obviously very low humidity, because it's a desert. There are 2 contradictory cliches that apply to Wadi Rum. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and pictures don't do it justice. I took hundreds of photos that day. I'll scroll through a few of them for you now. It is very frustrating to simultaneously love these images while recognizing that they are woefully inadequate at the very thing they were intended to accomplish. More on this in a bit. I've veered from the timeline. Shortly into the tour, we hit a section that made the truck rock from side to side, which felt like crossing a wake in a boat, which made me think of the song Rock the Boat by the Hughes Corporation. So I started singing it.
Don't rock the boat, baby, tip the boat, oh, oh, rock the boat.
And then this happened.
Hey, this was your idea. Nicely done. He asked you that when I didn't come out, or did you bring it up?
Yes. What your favorite song was?
What my favorite song was?
Yeah, and I ignored that request.
Want to say that again into the camera?
He asked me what your favorite song was, and I decided to ignore that request and choose this one instead.
That's more like it.
Let's see.
We're not exactly our song people, but this song, which Jason Mraz considered a nursery rhyme when he wrote it, really clicked with us for reasons that none of you care about. And she found this creative, romantic way to drop it into our trip, which is just amazing. Our first stop in the desert was this tent with a bunch of camels parked outside. Such tents are called Bayt al-Sha'ar, which translates to house of hair, as they're woven out of goat and sheep hair. Several prehistoric civilizations left petroglyphs and ruins in Wadi Rum, and this tent is conveniently situated near a famous set of glyphs. So I limped over for some photographs, enlisting Wendy to GoPro duty, during which she mostly just talked to the camels.
Thank you. Hi there.
Normally, I would have climbed onto this boulder to get up close to the glyphs. Alas, my injuries made that impossible, so I settled for navigating this little gap through which Wendy followed with the camera. Bedouins are famous for their hospitality, and the reputation is well-founded. Be prepared to drink a lot of tea when meeting new people, especially in Petra and Wadi Rum. They are also famous for their coffee, but that involves a whole ceremony with music and everything. So in our experience, most of the time, they just have a kettle of tea available. In this tent, we sampled several different scarves, and Muhammed finally tied my choice for me in one of the many traditional styles. Among other names, these headscarves are called Keffiyeh. This black and white checkered pattern was introduced by a British officer in the 1950s to distinguish his Palestinian soldiers from his Jordanian forces who wore red and white. The black and white keffiyeh's prominence increased during the 1960s with the beginning of the Palestinian resistance movement and its adoption by their leader Yasser Arafat. King Hussein of Jordan continues the tradition by wearing the red and white. Personally, I chose the black and white because we all thought it looked better on me than the red one. Back in the truck, we were struck over and over again by the alienness of the landscape. It's no wonder Wadi Rum is also called the Valley of the Moon, and that it has been used to portray distant planets, both fictional and real, in such movies as The Martian, Rogue One, Dune, and Rise of Skywalker. Most famously, perhaps, Wadi Rum starred as itself alongside Peter O'Toole in 1962's Lawrence of Arabia, the film which single-handedly created Jordan's tourism industry. T.E. Lawrence was a British officer during the Arab Revolt against the Ottoman Empire during World War I. He participated, sometimes as leader, in military actions against the Ottomans, culminating in the capture of Damascus. His memoir, The 7 Pillars of Wisdom, was the basis for much of the movie, and this rock formation, originally known as Jabal al-Mazmar, the Mountain of the Plague, was renamed the 7 Pillars of Wisdom after his book. Our next stop was here, at the former site of Lawrence's house, where we were again served some tea. This time in these great little glasses that Wendy fell in love with. Muhammad said he knew where we could get some if we were interested. I had done a lot of reading about Lawrence prior to our trip, so this site felt like a bit of a pilgrimage to me. In order to stand on the actual site of the house, you need to scramble up the rocks. I was determined to give it a try in spite of my injuries, but Wendy was able to pretty forcefully talk me out of it. At this location, I also ran into a Greek gentleman wearing a Santa Cruz skateboard tank top. We always try to get a record when our hometown is represented around the world, so I snapped this photo on our way back to the truck, which is when I shot the following clip. Okay, so you see up where that lady in the yellow shirt is, everybody? That is where T.E. Lawrence lived when he was in Wadi Rum.
Me and Wendy wouldn't let you go up.
But I can't go up there
You're a dumbass.
because I got 2 foots that don't quite work right now. And me and Wendy won't let me do dumb stuff.
Even Muhammad said there's nothing to see.
That was the best part. That was the best part. I was trying to see what I could see up there from the ground. And I finally asked our guide Muhammed, I said, what's up there? And he said, nothing. So now I don't feel so bad. Returning briefly to the point I started to make earlier about how hard it is to convey what this place feels like, the main difficulty is that it's often impossible to indicate the scale of it, the size of the rock formations, the vastness of the desert, etc. When seen in photographs, if you haven't been there, it's really, really hard to get it. Maybe, just maybe, this one photo will help give you a sense of it. If you look really closely, you can see here. I'll zoom in a bit, even though we'll lose some resolution. Down here, that is 3 camels with riders. Their tiny size from our perspective indicates how far from us they are. And they are also well away from the rock formation behind them, which is actually one of the smaller ones in the area. Hopefully, this gives you some concept of what it's like to be in this place. The tour of the desert involved 1 or 2 more stops, including the location of one of the most famous scenes from Lawrence of Arabia and this formation, which was used in Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. When we finally exited the desert, Muhammad drove us into town, one of the few places we visited in Jordan where they haven't bothered to print any of the signs in English. We stopped outside this storefront and he invited us inside, where after saying hello to the proprietors, he led us directly to this spot on this shelf, where he produced the exact glasses that Wendy had liked so much earlier in the day. He assumed we would want to buy at least 2 packs of them in order to have enough for our family, which initiated the following exchange. 2 boxes for 3 GD.
I just want 1 box. Just 1 box. Yes, 1 box. I'm not gonna have a party.
Yeah, but you might break them.
I know I do. Just for me and him. That's all.
No children.
No,
I have a child and he has a child.
but they're grown.
They're grown-ups. They're adults.
I don't take 1, 2 for me.
You do?
Me and my wife and 5 children.
You have 5 children?
Yes, I have 5.
Wow.
That's why you work so hard.
Yeah.
Wow. My goodness. Whew. I have 1 boy.
No, just 5 I have.
Yeah.
Just only.
I have 1 boy.
No, just 5. I want more 5.
You have more than 5?
I want more.
He
You
wants
want
more.
more.
Yes.
As we were leaving, it occurred to me that we might want to buy some bottled water while we were there. Muhammad said, you can get a case here for 1 JD. At camp, 1 bottle costs 1 JD. So we bought a case of water. The second evening was virtually a carbon copy of the first, except we spent more time getting to know some of our fellow travelers. In particular, Giorgio and his wife Marisa, who are from Italy. Interestingly, Giorgio worked for many years with the New Zealand national rugby team, the All Blacks. So while he definitely has an Italian accent, he also speaks English with like a Kiwi dialect. These 2 are absolute globetrotters. We're friends on Facebook, and if you guys think that Wendy and I travel a lot, we've got nothing on these 2. Hopefully, once we make it to Italy, they'll actually be home so we can catch up over dinner or maybe a bottle of wine. One of our absolute favorite things is meeting fellow travelers from around the world. Every person you meet has the potential to change your life, some in small ways, some more impactful, but rarely will you regret the experience. On the morning of day 8, we hopped back into the truck, bundled in our new hoodies against the chill.
So, Wendy,
Yes.
you're in the desert.
Yes.
Why are you wearing a sweatshirt with your hood up?
Because it's cold.
On our way out of Wadi Rum, Muhammad diverted from the main route and up this hill, where I shuffled over for the Martian tourist photo. I didn't want to do it. I had to. Because as I said at the time, and have said for years, Matt Damon and me, this. Then we headed off to reunite again with Mahmud I. Every such transfer was always completely seamless in Jordan, orchestrated by cell phone between the guides with little to no input from us other than sharing the phone numbers. As such, I also still have Muhammad IV's contact information if anyone is looking to stay at our camp. This time, we were continuing our southerly trend, heading all the way to Jordan's tiny little coastline at Aqaba. But that is a story for another day. Thanks very much for watching. See you in the next one.